everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lunch and Life with Sharon and
Robin Joy.
So this week, what we want to do is continue that conversation from last week of what you've written down as the triggers, and just kind of talk about goals and what we could do to look at the positive of everything, because it's so easy we're in such a negative society.
It's a great perspective when you think about it, because societal rules are, how do you fix and what's gone wrong, and kind of the woe is me, the glass is half empty,
Right.
and, we need to fix it all up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But this idea, but what we were talking about, this idea is what's right and the best that can happen from something.
Yes. You're so right, because we always look at what's wrong and we try to fix it versus looking at what's right to try to replicate it.
Say that again. That's awesome.
It's not mine. I borrowed. What?
Say it again.
I'm going to say it again. I actually read this in the book Switch, and it's how often we look for what's wrong to try to fix it instead of looking for what's right to try and replicate it.
Brilliant.
And if you just pause right now and think about that, take out your pen and papers. I love to like everybody now, as you're listening to us, take out the pen and paper and ask yourself, write down a list. What have you looked at that's been wrong that you've tried to fix? How often does that happen versus what goes well? Like, what's the best case scenario? What's good that you can continue to replicate? Because that goes back to the neuroplasticity and the rewiring of our brain that will help us to create goals, to reach our vision.
Right. And so when you are thinking of those goals and the vision, think of the positive. Instead of what can go wrong, shift it. What's the best case scenario? What's the best thing that can happen?
And let's pick one area. So whether you decide it's something emotionally, mental, whether it's physical, whether it's food, decide for yourself, sit with yourself for a few minutes, start your day like Robin always recommends, 5 minutes in the morning of just sitting and asking yourself the questions like, what do you want from the day? And what can I do? What do I want to work on? Because that's the first place, is just picking one thing. Because when you chunk it down, then you can look at, okay, what have I done in the past that's worked? And how can I replicate that? Forget about what hasn't worked. Just forget about it. Don't even go there.
Yeah, I love that. And it's kind of like making the, not the not to-do list, right? Instead of making the to-do list, what do you not want to do?
Interesting perspective. Interesting perspective completely, because the more that you realize what you don't want and what you do want, then you have that list that you can focus on.
Right. Because quite honestly, you're not going to either be productive and get done what you don't want, right? That stays as clutter, and that clutter makes us unproductive. And then we sit there and then we're wondering, then we go down a rabbit hole like we were talking about last week, where we kind of get hard on ourselves, and then we're like, oh, I didn't get this done, or I was hoping to, or I should have, or I just feel unproductive, I feel stuck, sort of thing. But if you think of what the not to do list of what you don't want to do anyways, you're doing the positive, you're doing the things you want to do, and that just boosts your hormones, it boosts your productivity. It's the stuff you want to do.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because being that it's summertime, everybody's going on vacation. So I've seen with myself, because I was on vacation, and with my clients, you go away, you have fun, you indulge. I definitely indulged. I enjoyed, and I felt it a little bit. And I wasn't hard on myself, but it's easy for me now to kind of, switch back and know when to stop. And so for someone who's listening to this and watching this right now, that I want to focus on health and food, something simple would be, when's been a good period in your life that things have worked? And how did that feel? And write it down. Because the more then you can focus on reincorporating those steps into your daily activity, that'll just help then to kind of kick out any of those other habits that don't serve you.
I love that. I do. I love that. I think that's great.
And it's the same thing with clutter and productivity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, you're making a choice to do things.
Mm-hmm.
You really are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking of books, you know, as we go on vacation and stuff like that, what book are you reading now that's your favorite? Because I'm a
Oh,
big believer. For a while, I went through, I have to read either something in my field. So I was always on the self-care or how can I increase my own awareness and self-care. For me, and this is because of you actually, you recommended Matthew McConaughey's green book of, it's called Green Lights. And I
mm,
love it. I love it. I see so much of myself in it, my daughter in it. I mean, there's just so much good about life.
mm.
Just a good life book.
Yes, I agree. I first of all, he's so sexy. So Matthew, if you ever come across this video, whoo.
Yeah. Can you please tag us, Matthew? We would just like to be tagged. Remember us, Matthew.
I just love how raw the book is and how he goes into, he's vulnerable in the book and how he's allowed himself to follow the flow. And it was a roller coaster ride, and but everything that he's learned from it, it's a fantastic read. Some people were like, oh, you're reading something that an actor wrote, but you can't judge because people are insightful, and
Yeah.
there's always something to be gleaned from that. So I am into self-help books right now. I also love historical fiction. So I'm kind of reading two books. But I took this with me when I was away, and it's Robin Sharma. It's called The 5 a.m. Club. And what I love about this is that he writes it in like a storytelling format of which we can all relate to, of how we're always trying, exactly what we're talking about, of how we're trying to be a certain person, live a certain way, do certain things that aren't really aligned with our soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, how can you look at the positive, focus on what's good, and have that grow exponentially? So what I do every day, and this is how I get through reading, I don't think like, oh my God, I have a 500-page book. How am I going to read it? I think I'm going to read 10 to 20 pages a day. And if I have time to read more, great. And if not, then I just read 10 to 20 pages. And I give myself about a certain amount of time. And what's great about that is that it takes the pressure off of, oh my God, I've got to read this huge book, to I'm just going to read a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny because I save my audibles for when I'm working out. That's what I I read. I listen to it, and then I typically read at night because I journal in the morning. So, but I do the same thing. That's my time. If I have more time, terrific. And if I'm tired and fall asleep, well, I did my pages. So.
Yeah. I like Audible for certain types of books, but I always find like I need to have the paper, especially if it's a self-development or something in my field.
Oh, I agree with
I
you.
need the book because I highlight, I take notes. It's like
Yeah.
I've got little dog-eared pages. Like it's just, I go back to it all the time.
I totally agree with you. Some books you just have to hold.
Yeah.
Hold and smell and yeah.
I almost need an apartment just for my books. Yeah. So I think just for this week, everyone, really just sit down and look at the positive, write down what does work, what has worked, what's the best thing that can happen from what you want to do so that it keeps you in that positive momentum, and share that with us in the comments. Let us know what's working. Let us know what hasn't worked. Let us know what triggers, which we talked about last week, may come up for you. And, let's continue to work on expanding that. Ask us questions. We're more than happy. We will answer them in the comments.
Absolutely. And when you find yourself saying the negative, this is a good exercise too. When you find yourself saying the negative, like this didn't work, see if you can stop and pause and say what did work. You know what I mean? Like try and stop that conversation. Like for me with emails, I stopped using as best as I can the word but, because but usually means an apology is coming at the other half of the sentence, right? So however, or whatever you need to say. So try and see if you can catch yourself and reframe it.
Love that. Yes. And if you don't, and you catch yourself after the fact, write that down and reframe it in writing, because that too is going to just improve the neuroplasticity and allow you to start rewiring so that you'll be more resilient each time. No, resilience is not the right word. You'll be more
aware,
aware, exactly, aware and quicker to adapt to something positive. And again, everything, it's a muscle, right? Everything takes time and practice, daily practice, and it's okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right.
All right.
Another episode of Unpacking Lunch and Life with you.
Always love unpacking lunch and life.
Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.